Hey, Debbie. Hey, brah, can I borrow a pencil? Hey, thanks, brah. Yeah, he's not getting that pencil back. Wow, last year when I was in high school, I was a hype beast. Sitting around watching Death Note on the weekends, playing The Quarry. Well, spoiler note, it's a werewolf, just so you know. This year's different though. I'm here at the University of St. Francis as an incoming freshman. Expectations are pretty high. You see, I'm a student, and I've got a full schedule of classes I'm dealing with. I'm not even sure what some of those books are. I'm trying to make everybody proud. My parents, who never graduated high school, well, they were really proud that I got in here. I got a lot of pressure there. I also want to make myself proud. I got a career path in mind, but it's going to be some time before I can actually achieve those. You know what else I do, though, is I'm an athlete. And there's a lot of different things going on. Like, no, I'm not a bat. I'm not even sure what that ball does. But I'm better at certain sports than others. And I also have to be safe. You know, that's a big important thing. And of course, physical rehab and everything goes along with. I'm not even sure what that thing does. All this stuff takes up a lot of time. And some days I'm more taxed than others because I might be up at 5:30 in the morning to try to go to workouts or to run or watch any kind of videos that we have or anything else that goes along with my athletics. And I'm trying to pay attention in class. And sometimes that can be pretty difficult. And I got one other issue. It's right up here. I'm not sure who to talk to about that. And the longer I wait, the worse this is going to get. Speaking of, we have our athletic director, Mike McCaffrey, on the podcast today. We're going to talk a little bit about that process, about mentoring, about helping people out, getting ahead of the curve, as it were. Hopefully we can do our students justice and help them out quite a bit along the way. I've got one other thing. I got this girlfriend thing, whatever. It's an online thing. She lives in Canada. It's not serious, but you know, I don't think it is. Maybe she does. Stay tuned, folks. Hey, Debbie, you wanna go to the movies this weekend? Well, you have a good time while you're there. All right, everybody.
That's awesome.
Here we are in the podcast with the athletic director of St. Francis University, Mike McCaffrey.
Morning.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Hey, and I'll be honest with you, you're welcome for us getting you out of Trinity Hall.
It's pretty quiet over there right now.
Is it really?
Everybody's moving out. The business office moved out.
Oh, that's
marketing,
right.
They're all moving over to the, what do they call it? The support services building.
Yes.
The old Fort Financial.
I don't know what that's
I'm not
supposed to
sure.
mean.
There's support in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But no, just about 4 or 5 of us left in Trinity, so it's pretty quiet.
Is it a nice balmy 91 in there?
It depends. If it's warm outside, it's cold in there, and if it's cold outside, it's generally hot inside Trinity Hall. My windows cracked 24/7 just to try to keep some sort of semblance of airflow.
I think I was in last time I was in there. In your office, we had this. Your window was open a little bit,
Yep.
and I thought, was there any bugs going to come in here? And I thought, I don't think they dare.
It doesn't matter.
It just they don't want that heat.
They want nothing to do with it.
One of the reasons why we wanted to do a quick podcast thing with you was student athletes, and coming into the fall season, as we're rolling around to bringing new teachers in, bringing a lot of new students in, and a lot of people are coming back, you're hearing more and more about issues with being a student athlete, how difficult that is anymore. And I got some statistics here. There's been a record this year, 520,000 student athletes now, or students and athletes and such in our collegiate system. 520,000. It's amazing. What was it? In 19,769 teams. And you were just talking about St. Francis that just a few years ago there was only a couple of teams around here. Now there's, how many teams is there now?
Well, so we play, I mean, just take football, for example. When we started football in 1998, there was no Marion University in Indianapolis. There was no Indiana Wesleyan down in Marion. There was no Siena Heights up in Adrian, Michigan. There was no Concordia up in Ann Arbor, no Lawrence Tech in Detroit. I mean, all of these schools that now have football programs did not have them when we started. So when we started, we were going into Indianapolis. We were going into Northwest Ohio. We were going into Southern Michigan. And we were getting a lot of the best players out of that area. And that probably helped us build the foundation that we did from 1998 till today, where, I mean, you talk about over 10 conference championships, coaches of the year. I mean, we ran the table pretty good up until 2007, 2008, and then the field started getting leveled a little bit, and then we had to kind of kick it up another notch, and then you go get probably the best quarterback that we've ever had, Nick Ferrer, in 2015, ends up winning 2 national championships. So, yeah, I mean, the competition for students has gotten greater just in our region. So you've had to be more diligent. You got to spend more time on the road. You got to get in those high schools. You got to let the coaches know who you are. And then you got to get students who want to come to St. Francis and get an education that we have. For us, the female side of things sells it pretty easily with our health science programs. It's not hard to recruit female. Oh yeah. Between nursing, PA, PTA, we get female athletes coming to us saying, "Hey, I know about St. Francis. I want to be a nurse. I want to come. Can I also play a sport?"
Why else do they come here? If you're talking about that's the female side,
yeah.
Why do the males come?
I think there's a few different reasons. Locally, I think we've made it very affordable for a kid from Indiana to come to the University of St. Francis. Between the academic awards that we give and the state and federal money that most students who live in Indiana can get, they're close to tuition before they even get here. So if they live on campus, the only thing they're paying for is room and board. So regionally and in the state of Indiana, we've made it very affordable. That's why they come. And we've got a good track record with creative arts and with the School of Business, more for our male side than for the female side. But then, they come because of a coach and because of an opportunity to play for the most part. And then on the male side, we try to find an academic fit for them, which is kind of backwards from a female. Like I said, the females, they know if they're health sciences, they know what they're coming for. On the male side, they know they're coming to play a sport, and then we want to match up an academic program more times than not. Sometimes a male baseball or basketball player will come in and say, "I know I'm going to get a business degree. I'm going to get an MBA. I want to be a CPA." I mean, we have some pretty high achievers.
And they know right away.
Yeah. So like Dan McKeeman from basketball, he was a valedictorian of the School of Business last year. Local kid from Carroll High School. Went away for a year, came back to St. Francis, finished his basketball career here, got valedictorian, and now he's going to go off and accomplish whatever he wants in the real world. So we have a lot of good success stories.
Sure he's going to.
Yeah, he's a top quality kid, and we've got others like that all over our athletic department. But I think from our School of Business side, we've tried to get those opportunities in the local business community for our students so we can show the pipeline. We've got a lot of alums now that are working here, so we can sell. They come back, they sell our recruits and say, "Hey, look at me. I made it through this program, and now I'm here in Fort Wayne, and I'm working downtown in a beautiful, booming downtown for people who are 20 to 30 years old." I mean, it's attractive.
But downtown's a lot different. When I moved here in 97, I'm originally from Mishawaka, and the downtown was an entirely different place. Yeah. And there's all kinds of stories about 69 was supposed to roll through, I guess, where Calhoun is, something like that at one time. That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And how we missed an opportunity, but you're starting to see a lot of what they would call, I guess, gentrification now,
yeah.
Taking these old buildings. The first time I saw that was when they took the old, it was a tire company on the corner there and made it into Starbucks.
Yeah, right.
And I thought, that is the stupidest idea. And then I started going there. I'm like, this is the greatest idea.
Yeah,
I was
the world
totally
needs more
supportive
Starbucks.
of it. Then had to, and Tin Cat Parkview Stadium.
That was the
down
biggest thing, yeah.
I thought that was because we already had a stadium up north.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be. This is going to be a disaster downtown, and we have spent a lot of time down there watching ball, watching fireworks. We do the breast cancer awareness, the cancer awareness walk every year, and in honor of my dad and a friend of ours as well. And there's a lot of things down there that, boy, you can do a lot of things now.
No doubt. And that's the sell. So for us within our conference, you're talking about Indianapolis is really, Marion is kind of our biggest competitor when it comes to recruiting. One, because of the type of school we are, Catholic, Franciscan, similar. We're not Indiana Wesleyan, Huntington, Goshen, Grace. We're not of those style. But then you look at the city of Indianapolis, and I'd say the second best city that we have in our conference would be Fort Wayne.
Really?
So if we're recruiting against someone who wants to maybe go to Indiana Wesleyan or Spring Arbor or Goshen, we take them downtown. We take them to the Parkview
Let 'em
field.
see
We
what it
show
is.
them that because they're going to spend time on campus, but ideally they're going to spend time in the community.
Yeah.
So you want them to see what they can go, oh man, I can go to a cool coffee shop. I can go get a slice of pizza here. I can go to a Tin Caps game and get $5 beers on Thursday night or
They
whatever.
got a
it ends up
variety
being.
now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on.
So we use that to recruit for sure.
When student athletes are coming in here, what's the most important part for them? Are they coming in and saying, okay, I really need to focus on the academics. I really need to focus on the athletics. Where's their mindset?
I think it depends on the student.
Yeah.
Some of your more highly recruited student athletes, they generally have it all together. They may come in and know where they are athletically. They know how to get better because they've done it for 4 years of high school. If they've gotten into USF and they're achieving what they need to in high school, they probably have pretty good time management skills. They're probably surrounded by a pretty good support system.
So if
They've
they're a
learned
good
how to
student in
balance.
high school, they should be a good
It's
student
generally
in
going to
college.
carry over.
Okay.
You see if a student gets in but struggled in high school a little bit, maybe has some athletic ability that we want to give a shot, and you bring them in and say, look, if you do what you need to do, you could have an opportunity here. Those are the ones that you probably have to work with a little closer. And we have a great student support staff over with Andrew Lair and his staff in student success. We work hand in hand with them to try to identify these students early on. Again, there are generally you can see now before they get here in the fall based on some grades, based on some traits, talking to a coach who recruited them. We know who might struggle.
So what do you do if you see some of those traits?
Yeah.
You got something sticks out.
Yep.
Could be one small thing or could be a host of things.
Yep.
What's the process? What do you do to say, okay, we have a student potentially coming in here that could have a couple of issues that could keep them from graduating?
Right.
That's not the best grammar in the whole world there.
Yeah.
But keep them from graduating, keep them from being successful, persisting
Yeah.
through the system or whatever. What's the process then?
Yep. So we identify them now, and then we work with Andrew and his staff, and we say, okay, maybe did they automatically qualify for MAP, monitoring academic progress? If not, let's get them into MAP. So they've got a scheduled meeting with an advisor, someone who has to work closely with them. The first-year advisors have been great for us. I think that program started 3 or 4 years ago with the first-year advisors. So now a student's got kind of their own advisor through the first year before we hand them off to that academic advisor the second year. So you've got someone who's very centralized and focused on them throughout that first year, because each program has a different first-year advisor. So Health Sciences has one, School of Business has one, and most of the athletes fall into that School of Business
They do,
advisor role.
percentage-wise.
Yeah, I mean, from our male athletes, it's 80 to 85% of them are in the School of
That's a
Business.
lot.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was quite that high.
Yeah, no, it's significant, and that's the thing. I mean, we don't have 35 academic offerings at the University of St. Fran. We don't have engineering. Right. We don't have a bunch of other things that males generally get attracted to. So they all just kind of say,
business
let me get my business degree.
I got
Or
you.
education. Education is the other one, because they want to go be a gym teacher, like their favorite gym teacher back home, or they want to get into kinesiology and nutrition and strength training that's coming on in January.
Well, they think it can make
too.
a difference that way too. Right?
Yeah, I think if you get those programs that they're passionate about, obviously they're going to do better. If they're just doing it because they have to do something, then generally we're going to have to provide them with a lot of support throughout the way. Yeah.
That's kind of the kicker with that.
Yeah. If they're kind of just saying, well, this is just what I want to do because I'm here to play baseball or play football, and especially with football, just because of the numbers, right? If you've got 140 kids around and literally 11 are on the field at a time, that first year for a kid who comes in and maybe doesn't have a spot right away is a tough one, because they come out of high school as the star.
Yeah.
Right? They were a superstar in their hometown. They come here, and you realize, you're not the star anymore. You're back as a freshman, and you got to work your way onto the bus. Then you got to work your way into probably special teams, and you got to work your way into the lineup. And that doesn't always happen overnight. And if you're not willing to do that work, and the academics are not something that you're passionate about and getting into, then you've got two things that really aren't fulfilling you. You're not satisfied by them, but you have to push through and figure out how to get to that end of the road, whether it's on the field or graduation.
How do you get through that? How do you persist?
Yep.
I was watching Bull Durham the other night. I watched that every time this year, about this time of year. And the Kevin Costner, Crash Davis talks about, I was in the show once for 21 days. Yeah. How was it? He goes, it's just, they throw ungodly breaking stuff, these curves and sliders and everything else. It's just incredible to see. But these guys are talking about, they're in the bus leagues playing with Tim Robinson, with the Durham Bulls. It's kind of a remarkable statement that you see the farther you go, the more exact, the stronger, the harder, faster, and everything. And you think, like you're talking about, you come out of high school, you think, oh, I'm pretty good. Then you go here and like, yikes. It's kind of the same thing. I'm a big Notre Dame fan. Yeah. And I've watched, Brady Quinn or Rick Meyer in the past just beat every record to death there. And then what happened to him? Yeah. And you think, how can that have not translated? But somehow,
different game.
Yeah,
it's a different
and Tom
game.
Brady's the other side of that. It's like, here was a guy who was really low on the draft, ends up being, whether you want to accept it or not, the greatest quarterback there ever was.
And there's physical attributes that you have to have, but I think to get through those struggles and get to that end of the road, it's more mental.
I would say so.
And it's more you deciding that you're going to do it.
It's like a confidence thing.
No doubt.
It's what does he say at the end of into Bull Durham, to keep referencing this? He says to get out there and fear and arrogance at the same time. And I thought, boy, that's a really interesting statement.
Yeah.
There's a really good documentary with Kurt Russell in it about a baseball team out of California on Netflix right now. And I would tell you the title, but it's got a couple of swear words in it. I don't think that'll go over. But it's really good how these guys came in, and it was just a team they threw together ad hoc, minor league team, and did pretty well for a couple of seasons, and then had some other things. Yep. One of the things that comes up a lot nowadays, more so than when I was younger, which seems like that's forever ago, the white beard can testify to that, is the focus on mental health. And the need of that nowadays is severely. I looked up a couple of things. It said 30% of student athletes surveyed said they felt overwhelmed, 25% mentally exhausted, and 30% male to 48% female have experienced depression and anxiety in a very severe way. And even there's other ones on top of that are actually more severe than that. But that's a generalized statement. As an athletic director here, how does that affect your job in going for it and having new people come in? What do you do? What do you do? Do you keep an eye on people? Do you just ask questions?
I think.
What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. That I think. So you talk about name, image, and likeness. You talk about transfer portals. You talk about all these different things that are impacting college athletics, and it's impacting us to a degree, not like the big ones that you see on TV.
Right.
But the most prevalent issue across all the associations, whether it's University of Notre Dame or it's University of St. Francis, is the mental health of our student athletes. And I think there's a lot of research probably out there, and I could give you a few things that I think are probably the reason why. I mean, these are kids that have come out of a pandemic. They are still adjusting back from a pandemic. I think social media is one of the most divisive and evil tools on the planet.
It's horrible. It really is.
If a kid goes out and puts something on social media and gets 3 negative reactions to it, it's going to eat them up.
End of the world.
And it's sick. And it's a different world, than what you and I grew up with, where, if you had a problem with someone, you'd go out back of school and you'd throw hands, and then you'd probably shake hands when you're done, go back into class, and it's all over. Whereas now,
it worked out pretty well.
Now you're not doing that. You're typing something to someone, and you're getting in and engaging in this back and forth.
And it seems a lot angrier now.
Yeah, with someone because you don't have to look them in the face.
No.
You can just type something and then send it and then walk away and be like, ha, 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 I did that. And then you have no idea how that affected the person who was going to read it. What we've done at USF, so we have a care team that is made up of representatives from all different parts of the university, and I'm on it. I represent athletics. So each week we meet and our Cougar Care alert system has become something that most of the faculty and staff have gotten used to. It's been around for a couple of years now, and if a student comes in and they say they maybe overhear a student saying, "Man, I just didn't feel like waking up today, and maybe I'm not going to feel like waking up tomorrow," they will send an alert and say, "Hey,
that's enough.
I heard this." Oh, that's enough to let somebody know. Say, "Hey, I heard this student in class. Just want to get people who are around this student aware." So then we start surrounding the student with everyone who. So if it's a baseball player, I'll call Dustin Butcher, our baseball coach, say, "Hey, Butch, have you talked to this kid lately? Have you checked in on this kid? Getting some reports." And yeah, I talked to him. He's got some things going on at home, but we're working through it. If it gets to a certain point, we do have mental health counseling here on campus for free for our students and our faculty and staff. If it gets to that point, we offer that up, but that's got to be a voluntary thing. You can't mandate anything like that. But we do this year. Ideally, I'm working with one of our alums who's in the social work program at IU Fort Wayne and trying to get her master's degree. She used to play volleyball for us. And she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I really want to focus on mental health for student athletes my career when I get out."
Very specifically.
So she reached out to me literally a week ago, and we've been talking for a week, and she's going to try to do her practicum here this fall working with our student athletes just on mental health. So we would have a person here on campus, obviously not full-time, but she would set up programs. She would figure out how we engage with these students, how we make sure those conversations are happening, because the best place for them to happen is within their team environment. So that's their safe space, right? Our soccer team has a room over there. The women's soccer and men's soccer have locker rooms.
Yeah.
When they're in there, that's their safe space. So if they're opening up in there and they're talking to their teammates or their coaches, their assistant coaches, then we feel like we're having that dialogue.
And they feel comfortable enough in doing that now.
No, I don't think all of them do.
No, they don't?
Not at all. No.
Because it seems to be in days of old, 1996, those old days.
Yep.
The world has changed so much, it feels like forever. Seemed to me there would be a horrible stigma.
Right.
That you felt weak, you felt vulnerable, you are embarrassed by that. I think I have something going on that I really can't figure out, I can't deal with myself. Has that changed? Have people turned their back on the stigma and said, "I need to get some help here and it's okay"?
I think it's getting there, but I think culturally and within your own home environment, that still gets dictated. I think there's certain cultures where it is still not okay to be a vulnerable man.
Yeah.
I think professional athletes like Lane Johnson and Ryan Clark and those that have come out and talked about mental health are helping the conversation. There's no doubt. I think people, most kids understand it, but to find that safe place still to go dig deep, I don't know that it's always there. Right? I mean, if you get a kid from, let's say from the south side of Indianapolis to come up here to school because they can play football and they didn't have a great home life and they didn't have a guiding figure in their life to tell them that these things are okay, they probably will not feel okay, and they will not feel like they can walk into a locker room because they've never had that environment.
So what do you do with that? Then you have a student comes in that may be reluctant for a host of reasons. Is it matching them up with somebody? Is it doing something a little bit differently with them than somebody else, or just to see what sticks? What do you do?
You try to match them up with an upperclassman.
Really?
Yeah.
That seems to work out pretty well.
It works and it doesn't work. We've had great success stories. We've had some that didn't, but especially within the football program, again, because we're talking about numbers, it's very important they have a mentorship program where every first-year student gets matched up with an upperclassman. You meet a couple times a week, just talk about what's going on. Now, again, we can set those meetings up, and we can put them with someone we think could help them. But when they're in that moment, if they're not doing the work to open up, if they're not doing what they need to do to build that relationship, then it's probably not going to work. It's like setting them up with a tutor. Well, we could set you up with a tutor, but if you don't show up or if you just sit there and play on your phone, then the tutor didn't really work.
That's what I did.
Yeah, well,
with a tutor. I thought that was extremely effective. And that was when it was just a flip phone.
Yeah.
Which just seems like a few years ago. With the teachers coming back now, just in a few short weeks here, coming into mid-late August here, that relationship that student athletes have with teachers can be difficult at times. From what I've heard, I've talked to a couple students and a couple teachers for that matter, and it seems like there might be a little disconnect of understanding And that was one of the reasons, actually, Will Wells, one of the guys that I work with, John, our producer, work with him over at Teaching and Learning Services, TLS, and JP2. And we were talking about that, and he was a football player here. Now, he was terrible. Will was a terrible athlete, and now I have the ability to say this to everybody out there, that Will was a terrible athlete, but he's got the biggest, fattest hands you've ever seen. So I think if you actually hit him in the hands with a football, it would probably destroy the football.
Nice.
So that's for you, Will. This is what you get for coming up with this idea. And he talked about the difficulties he had, travel schedules, social relationships really outside of the team might be strained, just the academic pressure and such like that. What can teachers do to help in this situation if we're trying to help with mental health issues, help the students get through, persist to graduation? What can the teachers do to understand this better and to help out the students?
I think one thing that we've had some pretty good success with over the last several years is getting faculty and coaches in a room and understanding that we're on the same team. We're not on different teams.
Great.
I think what we found out was a lot of the faculty, when we would go into a meeting with them and the kid wasn't showing up to class or was showing up late or what, they thought he was focusing on his sport as opposed to his classwork, so it became us versus them.
Okay.
When we found out was when he's not coming to class, he's not coming to practice either.
Really?
Like that's what we found when we really dug into it. It's like, oh no, we were having the same issues with that student. It's not.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't a one or the other.
Right. We're more on the same page than we probably realized.
Why were they missing both?
Just because that was where they were at that point in time. Maybe their first year, just struggling. Maybe they completely checked out. Maybe that was their second year and now they're really not playing and they're looking to transfer and they're just kind of packing it in and they don't realize that you should probably finish strong before you try to transfer, because you may not get in somewhere else if you don't have good grades here.
What if you have to come back?
Yeah, right. So I think there's a lot of different factors that go in, but what we did find is that we were on the same page more than not. So what we always do, and any faculty member that's come to me or talked to a coach, is reach out to the coach. Like, have their cell phone number sitting in your office. Our coaches don't do great with Cougar Care alerts, I'll be honest, right? They're not sitting on their computer all day and they don't always know exactly how to log into My Cougar Connection and at the right time and all. We're getting better, and I think the new system may help us out a little bit. But
I hope so.
Our coaches are creatures of habit. They're on the road recruiting. They're on the road at games. Just call their cell phone and say, hey, Coach Lacrosse, I just wanted to give you a heads up. XYZ's been coming to class. He's been kind of disengaged, or he didn't show up to class the last couple times. I noticed you didn't have games, but he told me you guys had a game. That's when you start to dig deep into really getting that connection between the faculty and the coach to help the student athlete the most.
Well, that's good to hear. That was always a big concern, because we fielded discussions several different times where people have asked, what am I supposed to do in this situation? Of course, we always err for have the discussion like you're talking about. Let's get the dialogue going here and find out where we can help. I think a lot of times with students alone, just getting it out in the open. It's in other words, secrets have teeth. Yeah. I think getting this thing out in the open helps a tremendous amount. Just admitting I'm struggling, or I'm not having a good day. Yeah. And I don't care who you got to say that to. It's a very powerful statement. I just need some help, and it's okay. Yeah. And you'd be surprised that you'd talk to the next person who seems like John over here seems like a fairly normal individual, although he looks like a villain. We've talked about this before. But if he ever came to me and said I'm having a bad day, all right, what's going on? Let's talk about it a little bit. And that's when we were offices right next to each other, and it's always a big thing to have support. Or as they say, it's if you can't be an athlete, be an athletic supporter. Is that the old?
No doubt.
That's the joke?
Yeah. So that's one. If you can't, and mine is if you can't coach, lead. So that's why I'm an athletic director. I can't.
Well, I think if you can't coach, I think you become a teacher. I think isn't that the other part of that? That was always my gig. Yeah. What's changed? You've been here. This is your 12th year as athletic director here. Yep. You've been in this realm 16 years now.
Yeah.
What's changed?
So when I got to USF in 2008, it was my first job in college athletics. I came from a minor league sports, arena football background. I was not in college athletics. I was in minor league and professional sports for about a decade. Was
that the one that John Bon Jovi owns?
I was in Indianapolis when John Bon Jovi was owning the team in Philly. Yeah. And my buddy worked for John Bon Jovi out there, who
really?
I followed from Indy. Yeah, he went from Indianapolis out to Philadelphia to work for JBJ, and then I took his job in Indianapolis with the Firebirds down there. But yeah, it was John Bon Jovi and John Elway were the big ones back then, and that was back in 2005, 6.
Really?
Yeah, but so when I got here, I was brought in to raise money. We had an athletic director, Mark Pope, brought me in kind of as a sponsorship guy, so go out and sell all the banners and tickets and Cougar Club and raise money. So basically, at that point in time in 2008, we were hosting 3 playoff games pretty much every year for football. We were one of the top seeds in the country. We were going to the Final Four, and you have to pay about $25,000 to $30,000 to host each of those games.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it got to be almost $90,000 to $100,000 to host playoff games.
That's nice of them to.
Yeah, nice of the NAI to make sure that you have that.
You pay for it
to help other people fly where they have to go.
That's nice.
So Mark was tired of asking people for $100,000 every year out in the community, so it was my job to come in and raise that money.
I get tired of asking that too.
Yeah, it's not fun to ask people for six-figure checks.
I've never gotten it. I could ask all I want.
Coach Donnelly can teach you that one. The best thing about Coach D is he's never asked for a single dollar. They just give it to him because they believe in what he's doing.
I should talk to him because that would work out spectacularly for me.
There's a savvy to it, and you got to have a little credibility, and he's got some. But I think the biggest thing for me that I've seen change, one is just, again, a lot more competition. St. Francis is not the top option like it used to be for a lot of people.
Okay.
You've got a lot of nice buildings going up at other universities and tracks and indoor facilities and these things, and we've kind of been stagnant in that area. Obviously, we're standing in a very beautiful area of our south end zone.
It is.
But this has a minimal impact on our student athletes, right? It's great for the fans. It's great for me to sell. It's great for the football stadium. But has minimal impact on our actual student athletes, like a track or an indoor facility or something where they can get better would do. And that the arms race is something that's just gotten insane, where everybody has to have the newest, greatest tools.
Yeah.
We've had other priorities at the university that have kept us from doing that. We've got a beautiful chapel. We've got an expanded science building. We ventured into downtown Fort Wayne. So those things happened since I've been here that have kind of, I don't want to say kind of put our athletic expansion and some of the big ideas that we've had as a department kind of on the back burner. And our hope is that now that some of those things are done and we're back into a master plan, strategic planning, that athletic facilities will become something that we can invest in pretty soon. Because if we don't, we're just going to keep falling behind who we're competing with.
Right.
And when you don't have the super high academic program to lure a kid, and you're literally just luring them with a coach or with a scholarship or with facilities, which is what we do, we've got to stay up on all of them. And then our scholarships are pretty good. Our coaches have been here a long time, so we've got consistency there. The facilities is the one area that we'd like to get back out in front of a couple people with. But obviously it takes time, it takes resources, and it takes a lot of collaboration and buy-in, and so hopefully we'll get there soon.
It's kind of glacial speed
in
a lot of ways.
And Sister Elise was the president for my first 12 years here, and then had a different president for the last 3. Now we're going into a different president. So I think the leadership changes and kind of how those have evolved over the time has been interesting, and something that you just have to go through, whether it's a president's cabinet or you've got a business leader and an academic leader who kind of run the schools. We've had all sorts of different models here, and it hasn't really impacted my job one way or another, depending on how it's been structured. Just who I report to has changed sometimes, but we've got great support for athletics. Obviously, Sister Elise was huge into athletics. Father Zimmer was big into athletics.
It's good to have that support.
Yeah, no, you need it, because if not, we're just going to sit over here spinning our wheels, not being involved in that bigger conversation
and
of how to get
less
better.
Students to pull from.
Yeah,
I've coached wrestling, softball, volleyball, probably something else in there. I would assume over the years. And one of the things I noticed that had changed, especially in the last 10, I suppose, was club teams. I made a comment when I was teaching at a local high school here that it was strange because I lettered in one sport one year. But I knew guys that lettered in 4.
Yeah.
And some of the students said they were just amazed. Well, how did that happen? I'm like, well, now listen to this novel idea. They had certain periods of time to play certain sports, and they didn't overlap. Unless wrestling and basketball were two different, but those don't.
Right.
If you're going to wrestle, you're probably not going to play
playing
basketball, and vice
Agreed.
versa. It just doesn't work that way.
Yep.
Unless you're like WWF, that's its own kind of gig.
You could be 6'8", I suppose.
You can be whatever. You could do whatever you want with that.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest change that I had seen. Now you have students that are playing, take a sport and play it year round, and then you start seeing more injuries. You start seeing more of a reliance on the one sport, like you're putting all your eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
Are we seeing more students now that are coming in that have only ever played the one sport? They've only ever played football. They've only ever played softball, baseball, whatever.
I think when you get to that high school level, that certainly has become a difference. I think younger, there's still a lot of parents and a lot of families out there throwing their kids into all the sports when they're younger. I think it's a double-edged sword. So I was a football, basketball, baseball guy. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Basketball, I didn't play my last 2 years of high school because I wasn't very good, but so then it was just football, baseball. But for my whole life, it was football, basketball, baseball. You just kind of go from one season to the next. We didn't have 7-on-7. We didn't have spring football in high school like they do now. It is, from that standpoint, each sport has tried to maximize the calendar. And it's made students have to choose.
Yeah, they do.
And I don't know that that's the best thing, but I would say the silver lining for college athletics is with all of these tournaments and all of these travel teams and all of these kids getting an opportunity to go out and play somewhere, we can see them in one place and not have to travel into 14 different high schools to see them because they're all coming to one place. Like this weekend, the largest women's basketball travel tournament in the country is in Louisville. The run, I think it's called Run for the Roses. Mm-hmm. Our basketball coach will be there every year. Goes to Louisville.
That's a good place to showcase,
no doubt. So
does it make a better athlete though in the end?
I don't know. I'm not.
That's been my biggest
smart
question.
enough to know.
Me neither. About anything.
Yeah, doesn't make. I've read and heard from people a lot smarter than me that you are a better athlete by playing multiple sports because of the multiple ways your body gets to go. And
so if that's true, then why do you think that? Is it just kind of the perceived notion that if I throw all my heart and soul in one thing, I'm probably going to get somewhere with it?
Yeah, and
but the reality, it's hurting you?
Yeah, I mean, you want a scholarship, right? Everybody wants a scholarship.
Okay.
The parents want their kid to get a scholarship.
So why not try that?
So let's go to every camp we can this summer and let my kid throw the ball around to a bunch of kids they don't know, and hopefully the right person will see him and put him on Twitter.
That's not a bad way to look at it.
I mean, the exposure part of it is good for the athlete from a recruiting standpoint. I didn't have a profile. I mean, when I got in high school, I got recruited by one college coach. He came to my high school, said, "We want you to come play football." I said, "Cool, I'm in." I didn't have a highlight tape. Like I didn't have any huddle.
Have the reel.
I didn't have a huddle account where coaches could go look at my highlights, and it didn't exist. You had a VHS, and you would try to cut up some plays the best you could, and then mail the guy a VHS tape,
right,
and hope that he took the time to put it in and look at it. So there are positives to the culture today. I do believe a negative is that they are very specialized. I would love to see our kids coming in, the football kid that runs track. We don't have a lot of dual athletes. Some schools do. There's a number of our football players that could run track for us. Now, we don't have a track, so we don't make it that easy for them to play both sports or to practice. But then spring football takes precedent a lot of times. If they're a football guy, well, they want to be at spring football instead of going to a track meet. So that's made it challenging. The days of the dual sport athlete seem to be fading away because of what you're talking about with the specialization and just the year-round presence of a sport. I mean, my son played at Bishop Dwenger. It's year-round at Bishop Dwenger football.
I taught there. That's what I was referencing.
I mean, they're all fall. They get up at 6 a.m. 3 days a week in the spring, and then in the summer they start all their summer conditioning, and then August 1st they're right back into camp.
You got to dedicate it.
So there's no downtime, and you can't. I mean, don't go on vacation. Don't do all this. You don't miss what we're doing here because this is what's most important. And for them, most of them, it is what's most important.
Can we as teachers be better and more proactive with the students? I guess in the end, can we be more proactive and say, okay, I've got in my classroom, I got 50% our athletes in here, does it give them a pass? Does it give them something that the teacher should say, because you're an athlete, I should do this or I should do that? Is there an expectation?
I think the expectation falls on, we try to put the expectation on the student.
Okay.
So first week classes for fall athletes, here's your schedule. Take it to each of your professors.
Let them know.
We make 4 copies.
Okay.
Take one to each of them. A lot of times it's signed by the coach, signed by me. Let them know this is your schedule. And let them know, hey, there could be a conflict here or there. We have some great faculty that work with our student athletes. Test is on Wednesday, but they've got a Wednesday volleyball match. Cool, take it Tuesday, or come in earlier on Wednesday before you leave, or come in first thing Thursday morning. Sometimes they don't want to give it to them ahead of time, ahead of the rest of the class. So they work on that. Most times when it doesn't seem like we're all working together, it's because the student hasn't done a great job communicating, or the coach hasn't done a great job holding the student accountable to communicate with that professor.
Because the teacher wouldn't know if you're an athlete just by looking at
I don't
your
think
roster.
so. I mean, you'd
There's
have to
nothing
get
on there that says
in the new system. You individually you could go in and probably see
you'd have
what
to
they
really
are. But
dig
when the
through
roster
there.
comes up, I don't think it identifies it. So that's why we put it on the student. Like,
So that's
you
why
need
they
to
have to
walk
be
in,
proactive.
Yeah, walk in, introduce yourself. Like be a leader on campus. You're a student athlete. Be a leader. Don't be the one in the back of the class with your head down and not raising your hand. Be the ones that the other kids in the class can look up to. And the ones that do that, we don't generally have any issues with. Now, then you get to, I think the spring is a whole challenge in and of itself. In Indiana, playing baseball and softball in the spring is obnoxiously challenging.
Really?
And
How so?
because, like, for instance, this past spring, I think we played the entire month of April, and every weekday game in baseball and softball got canceled due to rain.
Oh, that's right. Remember that.
Right, so let me get this right. Every weekend it rained.
Yeah.
So we couldn't play on the weekend. So we're
to
moving them to like
reschedule.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday instead of Friday, Saturday. And then now you've got to go to your professor on Monday morning and say, hey, that game from Saturday, we're now playing it this afternoon, and it's in Goshen, so I got to leave at 2 o'clock on the bus. And it's just adjusting. And yes, in the handbook, you have to excuse an athlete for competition, right?
Okay.
For a game. Not practice, not a team meeting.
for a game.
For a competition, it's an excused absence for a student athlete.
What's good to know? I wonder if everybody knows that.
I think
I didn't know that, quite honestly.
But, and again, it gets challenging when you feel like, as a faculty member, well, I did excuse it on Friday, but now it rained, and now you're coming to me again on Monday for another excused absence when you basically took Friday off, even though you didn't play.
Student has any option with that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're at
They don't,
the whim and whimsy of the weather.
Yeah, but so spring is very, very challenging for us. That's why that communication is so important, and why the student is so important in the process, because they've got to be the one to communicate, email the professors. Like, my softball coach now isn't emailing every professor on campus saying, hey, our game today got moved to 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right, that would be too time consuming, and I don't even know how
That's a
the heck
ton
you
of
do
work.
it. So the student needs to get on that email as soon as it's changed, or Canvas, or whatever they're talking to their professor, and say, hey, our game what can I do to make up the work? Mm-hmm. And generally, it works out.
That's
It
good.
happens.
Well, I'm glad to hear that that's...
And I'd say that's 90% of it. But that
that's-
10% is where
Like today's a great example. We've had, we just came out of a hard drought here for the last 3 odd weeks prior to this massive monsoon we've had rolling through here the last couple of days. And this last week has been nothing but rain. And my lawn was looking terrible.
Yeah, it's back now, isn't it?
Yes. Now it's driving me crazy. One last question I wanted to get your take on. You already mentioned it, name, image, and likeness, the NIL out there, the dreaded paying the students, whatever. Olivia Dunn, probably the most famous gymnast out there, that somehow or another she got $500,000 for some sort of Instagram post or something like that, which I'll do it for $5, quite honestly. If you want me to put, I don't even have Instagram.
I don't have a following.
I'm
not worth anything to anybody.
What's your take on that? Good, bad, indifferent, what?
I think good for students. As someone who's never wanted to work at the Power 5 level, it's never been a dream of mine to be a Division I big-time AD. Part of it because I don't want to deal with that kind of stuff.
Right.
When you started, I think about 10 years ago, I started seeing the trend that these ADs at these big schools were starting to become lawyers or CEOs of businesses like Domino's, right? I think the Michigan AD was formerly the CDO at Domino's before they hired Ward Manuel. Jack Swarbrick at Notre Dame is a lawyer by trade, right? I mean, they're sports people, but they're not sports people. I'm a sports guy. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a...
You're dedicated to sports.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here for the student athletes, and I'm here to help my coaches. Do I think NIL was inevitable? Absolutely, and I think the NCAA put themselves in this position, and now they're trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. They were afraid to let Congress kind of make the decisions for them, so they kept kind of kicking that off. Well, and then it became the wild, wild west because there is no regulation around it. At our level, there's NAI. I think NAI athletes. Oh, what did I read last time? There's about 225 NAI athletes that are receiving some sort of compensation for their name, image, and likeness. The average is about $1,500, right? So some might be getting 10 to 15,000. Some are probably getting a couple $100. When I've had a couple athletes come to me and ask me about it, I said I can't sell you to somebody on an NIL deal. That's not how this works.
No.
In case you haven't, do you have multiple 100,000 people following your social media account? And if you do, then I guarantee you someone will give you money to do that. At our level, it's not huge, but the NAIA passed the student athlete compensation rule in 2019 before the NCAA even did. Okay. So we actually jumped into the pool well before the NCAA did because we saw it coming. And we said, you know what, let's put some rules around it. You can be compensated for X, Y, and Z, but you can't jeopardize your amateur status. You can't go play football for money. You can't go play baseball for money and then turn around and come back. If you're getting money for something outside of playing the actual sport, then that's fine.
Okay.
If you're a model, if you're a basketball player who gets paid to model for Abercrombie and Fitch, great.
That seems fair because you're going to have very rich schools that would be able to pay you to do all kinds of things. And
our boosters.
It's like being the Yankees.
And we got boosters at this level that would do it. You know, not the $1 million deals that the Ohio State quarterback's getting, but $5,000 for an NAIA quarterback to show up at a car dealership once a week and sign some autographs. I could see something like that happening.
It's not unlike Yankees versus the Oakland A's.
Right.
That's
different
just
markets.
Different markets. You've got a different. Everything's different about that, and you also have a lot more money on one side than the other, and you're not going to get whatever, and that's part of that whole Moneyball experience.
I think it'll be interesting.
I see you got a new scoreboard back here.
There it is. Looks like she's starting to power it on too a little bit. I see.
So we got some new things coming up. That's new in the last couple of months.
Yeah. So April. I believe it was right at our spring game was April 15th. We started installation of the scoreboard the week after that. Fort Wayne FC Soccer Club has been playing here this summer, so they've been using it, and that's something where their partnership helped us make this happen. Yeah. The owner came in, and that's why we're in the Ruoff Mortgage Suites right now.
That's right.
The owner of the Fort Wayne FC is the owner of Ruoff. Sponsored these suites for us for 5 years, and then I think the first time he came, looked at our scoreboard and wanted to have his USL2 team have a little better scoreboard, so offered us the opportunity to partner with that. So whether USL2 Fort Wayne FC is here or not, the scoreboard is going to be, so it'll be ours for
I love to see it.
forever. But it's been a great partnership. They've been great to work with. They're undefeated here. They just won a division, so I think they're feeling the mojo of Darcy Stadium too. So it's been a great summer. We're excited to crank that thing up for our games here in the fall.
I'm excited too. We're going to be talking to a couple of student athletes as well, getting their perspective, and a couple other people coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be working with them, so stay tuned, folks. We got a couple of student athletes who are going to talk a little bit about their experience and what that's like through their eyes. One last thing, Mike. Do you know your watch is broken?
Yes, but it looks good.
Appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, folks. Stay tuned. We got another episode coming up pretty soon.